I remember the first time I saw Orion Gate. From the bridge of the horizon, the station looked less like a structure and more like an artificial world. Trade ships from dozens of civilizations moved constantly through its enormous docking arms, while military cruisers and diplomatic vessels passed through regulated traffic lanes. Humanity had been part of the galactic community for only 19 years. To civilizations whose histories stretched across thousands of years, we were barely worth noticing. Our diplomatic ship received no escort, no ceremony, no welcome. That was normal. The station operated at 0.5 standard gravity, a level considered comfortable for most species. When I stepped onto the docking platform, I immediately noticed the difference. Everything felt lighter. My boots seemed almost too quick beneath me. Ryan Brooks, our engineer, glanced around. Gravity's low. Very, I replied. Neither of us thought much of it. Earth's gravity was simply normal to us. We had lived our entire lives beneath it. We walked toward the diplomatic sector while aliens passed around us. A few stared. Most ignored us. To them, humans were a young civilization with limited territory, a small fleet, and almost no political influence. We were newcomers. Nothing more. I did not yet know that Orion Gate was about to change that opinion. And I certainly did not know that the first lesson would begin with something as ordinary as gravity. The first warning appeared less than an hour after we docked. Every public display on Orion Gate suddenly changed. Commercial schedules vanished, replaced by a red security notice. Increased pirate activity detected. All vessels are advised to remain within designated transit corridors. Nobody panicked. That told me more than the warning itself. People simply slowed down, read the message, and continued walking. Security personnel increased their presence near the docking areas, but the station remained calm. Apparently, pirates were considered an inconvenience rather than a serious threat. I understood why. Orion Gate had survived wars, blockades, economic collapses, and species disputes. A few pirate ships operating near a trade route did not seem important by comparison. The real disturbance was political. Our delegation entered the diplomatic sector shortly afterward. The chamber was already occupied by representatives from several major civilizations. They were discussing trade security, military jurisdiction, and the future distribution of authority within the region. Humanity was mentioned twice. Neither reference was favorable. A tall Keelan representative argued that Earth lacked the experience required for a meaningful position in regional security. Another delegate agreed. They have existed among the stars for less than 2 decades, he said. Their fleet is insignificant. Their colonies are few. Their military doctrine remains untested against a serious interstellar power. Nobody challenged him. I listened from the edge of the chamber. Emily Carter stood beside me, reading the diplomatic transcript on her tablet. They underestimating us, she whispered. Yes. Does that bother you? I looked across the chamber at the representatives laughing quietly among themselves. No. She raised an eyebrow. Why not? Because they making their decision using the information they have. That answer seemed to bother her more than the insult. Before she could respond, Administrator Maya Ven approached us. She was responsible for Orion Gate's diplomatic operations and had apparently been informed that the human delegation had arrived. She looked at me, then at the others. Captain Cole, she said politely. Welcome to Orion Gate. Thank you. Her eyes briefly moved toward the corridor behind us. If you find the station's standard gravity uncomfortable, we can relocate your delegation to the lower gravity diplomatic section. I almost smiled. Administrator, I said, I think you misunderstood. How so? The gravity isn't too strong. I paused. It's too weak. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Administrator Maya Ven looked at me as though she was deciding whether I had misunderstood her question. The station is calibrated to half-standard gravity, she said. I know. Most species consider that comfortable. I know. Her expression changed slightly. Captain, humans are not classified as a high-gravity species. By whom? She did not answer immediately. Around us, several delegates had begun listening. Apparently, my conversation with Maya had become more interesting than the political debate. One of the Keelan representatives turned in his chair. You claim Earth's gravity is higher than standard? Significantly. A few translators murmured as the statement passed through them. Another delegate laughed. It was a short sound at first. Then someone else joined. Soon, several representatives were smiling openly. I understood their reaction. To them, high gravity meant danger. Worlds with stronger gravitational fields were usually classified as hostile environments. Most species required reinforced skeletons, powered mobility systems, or medical assistance to survive there. I wasn't offended. I had expected disbelief. Maya folded her arms. How much stronger? Earth's surface gravity is about twice what you're using here. The laughter stopped. Not completely, but enough. A Virexian delegate leaned forward, studying me with several reflective eyes. Twice? Approximately. Your species evolved under that? Yes. For your entire history? Yes. The Virexian looked at the others. Impossible. I shrugged. It isn't. Someone behind me muttered that humans were exaggerating their planetary conditions to appear more impressive. I ignored him. There was no reason to argue. I had no interest in proving anything. We had come to Orion Gate to conduct diplomacy, not demonstrate physical strength. Maya finally gestured toward the corridor. Perhaps we should continue. I nodded. We started walking. I took one ordinary step. The deck beneath my boot cracked. The sound was sharp enough to silence the entire corridor. I stopped. Everyone stared downward. A spiderweb of fractures spread through the reinforced plating beneath my foot. For the first time since arriving at Orion Gate, I was genuinely surprised. I looked at Maya. I am sorry. She stared at the damaged deck. Then at me. What did you just do? I think, I said carefully, I stepped too hard. For a moment, nobody moved. The crack beneath my boot continued spreading in thin lines across the deck. A warning light appeared on the nearest wall panel. Structural integrity compromised. I slowly lifted my foot. The damaged plating stopped moving. Ryan Brooks stared at the floor. That was reinforced alloy. I noticed. Very reinforced alloy. I noticed that too. Maya Ven looked genuinely unsettled now. She crouched beside the damaged section without touching it. This material is rated for heavy industrial traffic. I wasn't trying to damage it. I understand. Her voice had become quieter. The Virexian delegate approached, followed by 2 security officers. They examined the fractures while several other representatives watched from a cautious distance. One officer scanned the deck. Impact force registered at approximately 3 times expected pedestrian loading. The Virexian turned toward me. 3 times? I looked at my boot. I suppose I haven't adjusted yet. Adjusted to what? The gravity. That produced another silence. I had spent my entire life moving under Earth's gravitational pull. My muscles, bones, tendons, and balance had developed around it. Here, everything was different. Movements required less effort. Objects felt lighter. My body expected resistance that simply wasn't there. I had not realized how much force I normally used just to walk. Sarah Reed arrived from the diplomatic offices after hearing the structural alert. She examined the damaged deck, then looked at me. Are you injured? No. Do you feel anything unusual? Everything feels light. She nodded slowly. Then you, probably fine. Maya stood. We, going to need an engineering assessment. Understood. She looked at the cracked plating again. Then she looked at me. Captain Cole, perhaps you should walk more carefully. I will. I meant it. But none of us noticed the security cameras recording everything. Within minutes, the footage was being reviewed by Orion Gate engineers. And somewhere inside the station, someone had begun asking a different question. If one human could crack reinforced flooring simply by stepping on it, what exactly had Earth evolved to survive? The engineering team arrived 7 minutes later. By then, the corridor had been sealed. A transparent barrier surrounded the damaged section while station technicians examined the fractures with handheld scanners. I stood several meters away, trying not to move unnecessarily. Ryan watched them work. How bad is it? One technician looked at his display. The surface plate is compromised. Can it be repaired? Yes. Ryan nodded. Good. The technician hesitated. The problem is determining why it failed. I already knew. I stepped on it. That is what the sensors recorded. He looked at me with obvious confusion. The recorded force should not have been sufficient. I said nothing. Maya Ven stood beside the engineering team, receiving updates through her communicator. Her expression had changed since our arrival. She no longer looked at us as representatives of a young civilization. She looked at us as an engineering problem. Then the station lights flickered. Once, twice, The corridor went dark. Emergency illumination activated immediately, bathing everything in pale blue. A warning sounded. Power fluctuation detected in sectors 12 through 16. The technician stopped working. Maya turned toward the nearest security officer. Cause? Unknown. Another warning appeared. Secondary power grid offline. Then the corridor shook. Not violently. Just enough to feel. Sarah immediately moved toward the nearest access panel. That wasn't a normal power failure. Ryan was already beside her. Agreed. Emily contacted the diplomatic office. Station control, this is Human Delegation 1. We re-experiencing a systems failure in our sector. Do you require assistance? The reply came after several seconds. All available personnel are responding. Please remain in place. Ryan looked at me. They don't have enough people. I knew he was right. The station was enormous, and a partial power failure could affect thousands of systems. I looked at Sarah, Ryan, and Emily. Let's help. Nobody argued. We moved toward the damaged sector. None of us realized that this simple decision would give Orion Gate its second lesson about humanity. The first had been strength. The second would be endurance. We reached the affected sector in less than 3 minutes. The station personnel had already opened several maintenance panels, but the darkness made their work slow. Emergency systems were functioning, yet the primary grid remained unstable. Ryan crouched beside an access terminal. Give me the diagnostic. A technician handed him the interface. He studied it for several seconds. The failure isn't here. Then where? Power is being interrupted upstream. Sarah moved toward another panel. Medical systems are drawing emergency power. Emily contacted station control again. How many sectors are affected? 16 and increasing. I looked down the corridor. Can we isolate them? The station engineer hesitated, not without manually closing the distribution gates. Where are they? 3 levels below. Ryan stood. Let's go. The engineer stared at him. The lower maintenance section is currently without gravity stabilization. Ryan glanced at me. That could be a problem. It might be, I said. We entered the maintenance shaft. The moment we crossed the threshold, the artificial gravity weakened dramatically. My body became almost weightless. The alien engineer struggled immediately. His movements became slow and uncontrolled as he tried to orient himself. Sarah caught the railing with one hand. Ryan simply pushed himself forward. I followed. The shaft descended through darkness while emergency lights blinked at irregular intervals. We reached the distribution chamber after several minutes. 3 manual gates stood at the far end. The engineer pointed toward them. Those controls require mechanical activation. Ryan looked at the handles. How much force? Normally, 2 trained technicians. He paused. Because the system is unpowered. Ryan grabbed the first handle. He pulled. The mechanism moved. I heard metal groan. Then the gate slammed shut. The engineer stared. Ryan moved to the second. He closed it just as easily. I took the third. The handle resisted for half a second. I adjusted my grip. The mechanism turned. Lights came back on throughout the chamber. Station control reported immediately. Primary grid stabilizing. The alien engineer looked at the 3 closed gates. Then at us. How long have your people trained for emergency maintenance? Ryan shrugged. Most of my life. Sarah smiled faintly. That's not entirely true. No? You repaired your father's tractor at 14. Ryan considered that. That counts. I almost laughed. The station had expected us to be diplomats. Instead, within our first hour, we were fixing its power system. And the galaxy was beginning to notice. The station recovered from the power failure within minutes. I thought that would be the end of our involvement. I was wrong. The first explosion came from docking ring 4. It was followed by 3 more. The corridor shook beneath my boots as emergency alarms flooded the station. Security breach, a voice announced. Multiple hostile vessels have entered the outer docking sectors. Maya then froze. Pirates? The answer came immediately. Yes. Confirmed pirate attack. Multiple sectors compromised. Security personnel began moving toward the transit junctions. Then the station doors sealed. The lights changed to red. A tactical display appeared on the wall, showing Orion Gate divided into dozens of sectors. Several had already turned crimson. Ryan studied it. They're not attacking randomly. I looked closer. The pirates had seized the docking rings, cargo storage, and several maintenance corridors. They're cutting the station apart, I said. Sarah looked at me. How? Control the corridors. Control movement. Control power. Emily contacted Station Command. Do you need diplomatic personnel evacuated? No, came the strained response. All available security units are being deployed. Another explosion shook the station. This one was closer. Maya received a new transmission. Her expression changed. Central Security has lost Sector 9. The corridor ahead filled with armed station personnel retreating toward us. Behind them came smoke, then gunfire. A security officer shouted for everyone to move back. I looked at the weapons in their hands. Then at the advancing smoke. Captain, Maya said, stay here. I shook my head. No. She stared at me. We can help. The officer beside her laughed nervously. With what? Diplomacy? I looked toward Ryan, Sarah, and Emily. None of them looked frightened. Not calm because they were fearless. Calm because they were working. I drew my sidearm. We take the corridor back. Maya stared at me. That section is already considered lost. I know. And the pirates have heavy weapons. I know. She hesitated. Then I heard myself say the words that would later appear in Orion Gate's official incident report. Then we should probably get started. The corridor ahead disappeared behind smoke. I could hear weapons firing somewhere beyond it, sharp bursts echoing through the station structure. Security officers were regrouping around the junction, but nobody was advancing. I understood why. They were waiting for heavier support. We did not have time to wait. I moved first. Ryan followed on my left. Sarah stayed behind us with Emily, carrying medical equipment and a compact emergency scanner. The security commander grabbed my arm. Captain, that section is occupied. I know. You don't understand. The attackers have military-grade weapons. I looked at him. Then stay behind us. We entered the smoke. Visibility dropped to less than 10 meters. My breathing remained steady. Ryan moved beside me without being told where to go. Sarah covered our rear. Emily monitored the tactical network and quietly called enemy positions. 3 ahead, she said. I saw the first pirate through the smoke. He was large, armored, and carrying a weapon designed for close-range suppression. He raised it. I moved before he fired. The distance disappeared in a second. I struck his weapon aside, drove my shoulder into his chest, and sent him into the wall hard enough to crack the panel behind him. The second pirate fired. Ryan pulled me down. The shot passed overhead. He returned fire once. The pirate dropped. The third ran. Emily pointed toward the intersection. Right corridor. Ryan was already moving. We followed. There was no shouting. No dramatic commands. We simply moved together. That was what the station security cameras recorded. 4 humans entering a captured corridor and advancing through it as if they had rehearsed the operation for years. They had not. We simply knew how to move under pressure. The pirates had expected hesitation. They found none. Within 4 minutes, the corridor was secure. Station security entered behind us. One officer stopped beside the first unconscious pirate and stared at the damaged wall. Then he looked at me. How did you do that? I looked at the wall. I hit him. That isn't what I meant. I understood. Neither did I. The corridor was quiet for several seconds after the last pirate fell. I checked the junction ahead. Clear. Security teams entered cautiously, weapons raised. Their commander stopped when he saw the 3 disabled attackers lying across the floor. How many were there? 23, Emily answered. He stared at her. You counted? Yes. Ryan checked the magazine of his weapon. They regrouping 2 corridors ahead. The commander looked at him. How do you know? Ryan pointed toward the wall. Sound. The officer said nothing. We advanced again. This time, the pirates were waiting. The first burst of fire struck the corridor wall. We moved before the security officers could react. I crossed the distance between us almost instantly. A pirate fired at my chest. The impact threw me backward. For half a second, everyone froze. I looked down at my armor. The round had cracked the outer plate but had not penetrated. I'm fine, I said. Ryan moved past me and dropped the shooter. Sarah reached the wounded security officer behind us. She had already opened her medical kit before he hit the floor. Pressure here, she ordered. The station cameras recorded everything. They recorded humans moving faster than expected. They recorded humans continuing after impacts that should have stopped them. They recorded 4 people coordinating without shouting, hesitation, or confusion. What they did not understand was why. Later, the medical department would examine our scans. they would discover that human bones were unusually dense. Our muscle structure was adapted for sustained exertion. Our cardiovascular systems could continue supplying oxygen under extreme physical stress. None of those discoveries happened in the corridor. There, we were simply trying to take the station back. We reached the final security door. Ryan placed his hand against the control panel. Locked. I looked at him. Can you open it? He smiled. I can try. Before he could touch the controls, the door exploded inward. A pirate emerged through the smoke. He raised a weapon. I stepped forward. The fight lasted 3 seconds. Then the corridor became silent again. Emily checked the tactical display. Sector 9 is ours. Behind us, the security commander slowly lowered his weapon. He looked at the damaged corridor. Then at us. Nobody laughed anymore. We had barely secured Sector 9 when the station alarms changed. The pirate warning disappeared. A new message replaced it. Unknown military fleet detected. The tactical display filled with red markers. Not dozens. Hundreds. Maya then stared at the screen. That ISNTA pirate fleet. No, I said. Emily enlarged the transmission data. The vessels carried no recognized galactic insignia. Their hulls were dark, angular, and built for military operations rather than commerce. Ryan looked at me. Who are they? We don't know. A station intelligence officer rushed toward us. We intercepted communications from the pirate command network. The attack was not independent. Maya turned. Explain. The pirates were being monitored by another organization. They transmitted recordings of the human engagement. I looked at the tactical display again. They saw us. The officer nodded. And now they want the humans. A transmission appeared on the central screen. A voice spoke through the station's translators. Human delegation aboard Orion Gate. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Nobody answered. The voice continued. Your biological capabilities have significant military value. Your cooperation will prevent unnecessary casualties. I felt Emily glance toward me. The message was calm, professional. That made it worse. They aren't here for the station, I said. Maya's expression hardened. They here for you. Yes. Another warning appeared. Hostile fleet entering system. The numbers continued rising. 100 ships. 300. 600. Then more. Orion Gate's defenses began powering up, but I knew the station could not survive a direct assault against a fleet of that size. Maya looked at me. What are you going to do? I activated my communicator. Contact Earth. Ryan looked at me. Now? I nodded. Now. The channel opened. For several seconds there was only static. Then a human voice answered. Earth command. Identify. I looked through the observation window at the approaching fleet. This is Captain Ethan Cole aboard Orion Gate. I paused. We have a problem. There was a short silence. Then the response came. Understood. Are you requesting evacuation? I looked at Maya, Sarah, Ryan, and Emily. Then at the station. No. I kept my voice level. We requesting protection. The answer came immediately. Message received. And somewhere beyond the edge of the system, humanity began moving. The information reached the Galactic Council before the hostile fleet entered weapons range. At first, nobody believed it. The recordings from Orion Gate were reviewed by security analysts, military officers, and medical specialists from 12 different civilizations. They watched the same footage again and again. 4 humans entering a captured corridor. 4 humans moving through armed opposition without hesitation. A human taking a direct weapons impact and continuing. A human cracking reinforced station plating with a single step. The council had seen the evidence. What it lacked was an explanation. Administrator Maya then transmitted everything she had. The structural reports, the medical scans, the combat recordings, the gravity data. The results were unsettling. Human skeletal density was significantly greater than most comparable species. Their muscles were adapted for sustained exertion under Earth's gravity. Their cardiovascular systems could maintain oxygen delivery during prolonged physical stress. Their recovery rates were unusually high. But the physiology was only the beginning. The scientists began studying Earth itself. They examined its gravity, its atmosphere, its oceans, its temperature variations, its deserts, its polar regions, its storms, its tectonic activity, its predators. The conclusion spread through the scientific network slowly, because nobody wanted to be the first to say it aloud. Humanity had not evolved on a gentle world. Earth was a hostile environment. A beautiful one, perhaps. But hostile. For millions of years, humans had survived competition, disease, predators, environmental changes, famine, injury, and conflict under nearly twice the gravity used aboard Orion Gate. One council scientist summarized the discovery in a single sentence. "We mistook a survival environment for weakness." The statement was copied across dozens of diplomatic networks. For the first time, representatives who had dismissed Earth as inexperienced began studying human history seriously. They discovered something else. Humans did not merely survive dangerous environments. They had spent thousands of years adapting themselves to danger. Their civilization had developed weapons capable of destroying cities. Their military doctrines emphasized logistics, redundancy, and endurance. Their explorers had crossed oceans without knowing what waited beyond them. The galaxy had assumed humanity's youth meant weakness. Now another possibility appeared. Perhaps humanity was young only in space. Perhaps Earth had been preparing them for space all along. And beyond Orion Gate, 600 hostile ships continued approaching. The Council finally understood that the humans were not the ones trapped on the station. The hostile fleet was approaching something it did not yet understand. I stood beside the observation window and watched the hostile fleet approach. The ships were now close enough for Orion Gate's sensors to identify individual vessels. Hundreds of weapons platforms moved through formation, surrounding the station from several directions. Maya stood behind me. "Earth hasn't," T responded. "They will." She looked at me. "How can you be certain?" "Because I know how we plan." My communicator activated. A human voice filled the room. "Captain Cole, this is Earth Command." I straightened. "Go ahead. We have your position." "Understood. The station will be protected." Maya's expression changed. "Protected by what?" I looked at her. "Us." The first human vessels appeared less than a minute later. They emerged from faster-than-light transit beyond the outer defense perimeter. One ship became 10. 10 became 100. Then hundreds more appeared across the tactical display. The station fell silent. Even the hostile fleet stopped advancing. Human warships formed around Orion Gate, not in an aggressive formation, but in a defensive shell. Their weapons remained powered down. Their shields were active. No demands were transmitted. No threats were issued. The hostile commander finally opened a channel. "Human fleet, identify your authority." A reply came immediately. "Earth Defense Command. You are ordered to withdraw." "No." The answer was calm. "You are trespassing inside a protected diplomatic facility. We have come for the human delegation. You will not take them." There was a long silence. Then the hostile commander transmitted coordinates. "You cannot defeat this fleet." I watched the tactical display. The human fleet did not move. "We aren't here to defeat you," the Earth commander replied. "We are here to make sure you don't hurt anyone aboard that station." The hostile fleet began charging weapons. Every human ship responded simultaneously. The tactical display changed. Thousands of targeting locks appeared. The hostile fleet suddenly stopped. I heard Maya breathe quietly behind me. The human commander spoke one final time. "Leave Orion Gate." No anger. No speech. Just an instruction. For several seconds, neither side moved. Then the hostile fleet began withdrawing. I watched them disappear into faster-than-light transit. Earth had not conquered Orion Gate. We had not demanded territory. We had not asked for political power. We had simply arrived. And for the first time, the galaxy understood something important. Humanity did not need to rule anyone. It only needed to decide where the line was. Orion Gate was now standing on that line. The war did not begin at Orion Gate. That was the official conclusion. The hostile fleet withdrew, the pirate network collapsed within 3 days, and the organization responsible for the attack disappeared beyond the Council's borders before anyone could determine its full identity. But Orion Gate changed. The damaged corridor was rebuilt first. Then engineers reinforced the entire diplomatic sector. The original plating was replaced with materials rated for significantly greater impact loads. The station's engineering department quietly updated its pedestrian specifications as well. The new regulations contained a line that became famous among maintenance crews. Human personnel. Exercise caution during transit. I found that amusing. I did not tell anyone. The scientific community became far more interested in Earth. Medical institutes requested permission to study human physiology. Universities began offering courses on terrestrial evolution. Military academies analyzed the recordings from Orion Gate, searching for explanations for what they had witnessed. Humanity provided limited access. We shared information. We did not share everything. That distinction mattered. For the first time since humanity entered galactic society, representatives stopped asking how powerful our fleet was. They began asking different questions. How strong were humans? How much could they endure? How long could they fight? How had such a species remained confined to one planet for so long? I never answered those questions personally. The galaxy was learning to study us. That was enough. Maya then became one of the strongest supporters of expanded human diplomatic representation. She argued that Earth had been judged using standards designed for civilizations thousands of years older. The Council eventually agreed. Humanity received additional diplomatic territory, greater security authority, and a permanent seat on several interspecies committees. None of it felt like victory. There were no celebrations, no monuments, no speeches. The station simply adjusted. Ships continued arriving, cargo continued moving, diplomats continued arguing, and humans continued walking through the corridors. Only now, people moved aside when they saw us coming. Not because they feared us. Not entirely. Mostly because they had learned something simple. Human beings were built for a world that demanded more from them than Orion Gate ever had. And the galaxy had finally begun to understand what that meant. I returned to the corridor weeks later. The damaged section had already been repaired. New plating covered the old fractures, stronger than before. But one small section had been left untouched. The original crack remained beneath a transparent layer. Maya stood beside me, looking down at it. For the historical record, she said, they decided to preserve it. I nodded. She was quiet for a moment. Do you know what I kept thinking about? What? The gravity. I looked at her. She continued. We always assumed weak gravity meant a weak species. I said nothing. Maya looked through the corridor window toward the stars. We saw Earth as a disadvantage. Then she looked down at the cracked deck. But it wasn't, No. It forced you to become stronger. I considered that. Earth didn't, force us to be strong, I said. Maya waited. We just had to survive there. That was the part the galaxy had finally understood. Humans had not been shaped by comfort. We had been shaped by resistance. Gravity, weather, distance, disease, predators, conflict. Every generation had inherited a world that demanded adaptation. And we had adapted. The galaxy had looked at Earth's gravity and seen a weakness. They had measured the planet. They had measured our fleet. They had measured our age. They had measured everything they thought mattered. They had simply measured the wrong things. Maya looked once more at the preserved fracture. Then she smiled faintly. They laughed at Earth's gravity. Yes. And then one human stepped down. I looked at the damaged deck. The crack was still there. Small, almost insignificant, but everyone on Orion Gate knew what it meant. Earth had never made humanity weak. It had made us ready. And now the galaxy knew.